You know that feeling when you walk through an old city and it's like you're literally stepping back in time? Well, that's what we're diving into today. We're going to see how a city's buildings can be a kind of living history book, and our case study, the amazing French city of Nantes.
So, how does that even work? I mean, how can a bunch of stone, brick, and glass tell a story that stretches back 2,000 years? It sounds kind of wild, right? Well, let's take a walk through the streets of Nantes and find out together.
Okay, so here's our roadmap. We're starting way back with the Romans, then jumping into the Middle Ages. After that, we'll see this incredible Golden Age, then the gritty Industrial Revolution, and finally, how the city completely reinvented itself for today.
All right, let's get into it and start peeling back those layers. Just imagine, Nantes is a giant book written in stone, and every single era added its own, unique chapter.
So to really get why Nantes has so much incredible architecture, you've got to look at its geography. It's sitting right on the Loire River, which made it a perfect spot for a trading hub. And trade, well, that meant money. A lot of money. And that wealth got poured right back into the city, funding all the ambitious buildings we still see today.
Okay, so for our first chapter, we're going way back to the city's ancient roots. Back then, architecture was pretty much about two things, and two things only: defense and faith. So check this out. 2,000 years ago, Nantes was a Roman town called Condivictium. Now, you're not going to find some big Colosseum-style ruins or anything, but its legacy is hiding in plain sight. The Romans built these massive stone walls, right? Well, centuries later, people just reused those stones. They literally became the foundations for the medieval city. So the Roman city is still there. It's just hiding inside the walls of the next chapter.
And speaking of medieval, this castle perfectly captures that mindset. This is the Château des Ducs de Bretagne. It was home to the Dukes of Brittany, and let me tell you, it was a fortress first, palace second. You can totally see it in those super thick stone walls and that big wide moat. It was all about keeping people out. But what's really cool is that if you look closely, you can see later additions, these more elegant Renaissance-style bits. So this one building tells its own little story of the shift from just pure defense to wanting a little beauty and comfort.
Of course, next to the castles, you had the cathedrals dominating the skyline. The Nantes Cathedral is a perfect example of the Gothic style, and what you're looking for here are those super tall, pointed arches and gigantic stained glass windows. The whole idea was to make you look up, to fill the entire space with this incredible, heavenly light. It was designed to make you feel, well, completely in awe.
So you can see this massive shift in priorities right here. It's like a before and after picture. In the medieval fortress, you've got thick walls, tiny windows. It's all about defense. But then you jump to the 18th century and suddenly it's all about symmetry, wide open streets, and showing off. The focus completely flipped to decoration and culture. It's a totally different idea of what a city is even for.
And that brings us to the next layer, which was probably the city's biggest transformation ever. We're talking about the 18th century Golden Age, a time fueled by just an insane amount of wealth.
Now, it's really important to be clear about where all this money came from. Nantes became one of the richest ports in France thanks to global trade, but we have to acknowledge that a significant and very dark part of that wealth came from the slave trade, and that money is what funded a complete facelift for the city center, paying for all those grand squares and fancy building fronts that were designed to shout to the world just how rich the city was.
And this new look had a name: neoclassical. Basically, just think ancient Greece and Rome coming back in style. It's all about order, harmony, balance, big columns and buildings that are perfectly symmetrical. It was the perfect style to project an image of power, high culture, and sophistication.
And you see this neoclassical vibe everywhere. Just look at the Place Royale, this beautiful square where all the buildings match perfectly. Or check out the Théâtre Grasland. It's an opera house that straight up looks like a Roman temple. These weren't just random buildings. They were making a huge statement. They were declaring Nantes as this modern, sophisticated European cultural hub.
But of course, time doesn't stand still. So the next layer we peel back is from the age of industry, a time of iron, steam, and huge, sprawling growth.
Yeah, the 19th century was all about getting things done. Shipbuilding and factories just took over the riverbanks. The city literally burst out of its old walls, with new neighborhoods for workers built from practical, cheap brick. Then came the railways, connecting Nantes to everywhere, and these new iron bridges became like the arteries, pumping life into this massive industrial machine. Okay, So here's a really fun little quirk about the city. You see these elegant mansions that were built on the Ile Feydeau? Well, they had one big problem. The ground was super soft and marshy. So if you go there today and look really closely, you'll see that some of them are actually tilting a little bit. It's such a cool detail, right? It's like a literal reminder that all this ambition was built on some pretty shaky ground.
And speaking of shaky ground, those industrial foundations were about to be shaken to their core. Which brings us to our most recent layer, the 21st century reinvention. So, what happens when the very industry that defined your city for a century just vanishes?
Well, by the end of the 20th century, that's exactly what happened. The engine of industrial Nantes just died. The shipyards, which had been the city's beating heart, fell silent. The huge warehouses stood empty. The city was facing a total identity crisis.
So, was that it? Was Nantes just going to become another sad post-industrial graveyard?
No way, not even close. What Nantes did next is just incredible, and it says everything about the city's spirit today. Instead of tearing down its industrial past, they embraced it, they transformed it. The old shipyard was turned into this wild, imaginative art project called Les Machines de l'Île. And that giant mechanical elephant? That's the new symbol of the city. It's this amazing proof that you can turn old, rusty factories into places of wonder and creativity. And that creative spirit is still going strong. You see it in modern buildings, like the incredible Palais de Justice, with its bold design. And you see it in the city's new focus on eco-friendly, sustainable building. The story written in stone has shifted again, this time to one about imagination, sustainability, and just a better quality of life.
So, when you zoom out and look at it all, you really see it. Nantes is a city made of layers. You've got the Roman foundations buried underneath, then the medieval fortress. On top of that, the Golden Age elegance, followed by the industrial engine, and finally, this new layer of modern imagination. Each era literally built on the last, creating the amazing, complex city you can walk through today.
So yeah, walking through Nantes really is like walking through time. Every single building, every stone, is a page in a 2,000-year-old story that's still being written. Which really just leaves one question, doesn't it? What story is Nantes going to build next?